Hi, this is Al Williams of Sunset Hill Solutions. This is my next Business Objects XIR video tutorial, and this one is a bit different than the other ones I produced to date. In this case, I'm going to be doing a review of a third-party application that works with Business Objects to provide enhanced report bursting and distribution and scheduling functionality. If you've watched some of my other Business Objects XIR videos, you probably know that I've already created two videos showing how report bursting and distribution and scheduling works with the core functionality of Business Objects XIR. And the reason I'm doing this video is because I was recently in a project where we needed to have functionality above and beyond what Business Objects offered. And the solution that was chosen for a proof of concept was in fact InfoBurst. Before I go any further, I should mention that the scope of this video is only going to be using InfoBurst with Web Intelligence in Business Objects XIR. As you can see on this page at the Infosol website, InfoBurst works with not only Business Objects, not only Web Intelligence reports, but also Desktop Intelligence reports, Crystal, dashboards, and also with SQL Server reporting services and some other file types. So as you're watching this video, please keep in mind that I'm only showing you a small amount of functionality that's included with InfoBurst. There's a lot more this product can do that won't be covered in this video. Before I get into showing you how the InfoBurst product works, I just want to point out a couple more things. They do have a very good support website, and they have their documentation does have a lot of screenshots, and I found it to be very informative, and it made it much easier to get started with the application and find my way around. One other thing I want to mention in addition to that is that I'm not an employee of Infosol. I'm not being paid to create this video. I'm doing it because I think it's a really good product, and I like for people that use Business Objects to know about the functionality that it offers and to see if perhaps it might fit in with their organization. I'm not going to cover the initial installation and setup of the application. It was very straightforward installation. The things that you have to do after installing the product to get it working, the initial configuration and so forth, is very well documented on their website. So I'm not going to spend any time going over that. We're going to get right into the user interface and start talking about how to use the product. The first thing I want to show you is the InfoBurst Launchpad. In this video we're going to be spending most of our time in the user interface, but I just want to point out a few things on the setup screen. So at the top of the screen you'll see the repository connections. Typically you only have to create this once and never have to worry about it again. In this case we're using SQL Server as the repository database for InfoBurst. And then in the bottom part of the screen we see a number of configuration options. The only ones that I've changed here are the email settings to set them to work for my email server. But as you can see, there's a number of different settings here that you can change if you need to. I didn't make any changes to any of the system settings other than the email settings. So let's go into InfoBurst, the user interface. And this is the screen that you'll see. Let me just log in here. So this is the user interface that you'll see the first time that you log into the system. You'll notice that I had created a testing folder here. You can create any number of folders in InfoBurst to store objects. I just want to point out a few settings for InfoBurst itself. If I go into the left tab here and click on Settings, this is where you set up your platforms. So for instance, we have a couple of platforms here for Business Objects, Business Objects 4.1 server, and very easy to get these set up. So I'm not going to spend a time going through all of the configuration options. There are quite a few because I really want to focus on the functionality of InfoBurst, but one thing I do want to point out is under system configuration, this is where you configure your from email address and your primary server and the port that you use. So this is in addition to the email settings we saw a few minutes ago. So the last system setting I want to point out is network and printer registrations. I'm not going to register any printers, but as you can see, I have registered a path to a folder. This is actually on the application server. It can be any network share within your organization. Now the important thing to remember with this, when you do set this up, is that you have to share this folder and give the administrator account rights to it. So if I go to the server itself now, you'll see that I have this Business Objects Report Output folder created, and if I go to Properties and Sharing, you'll see the administrator account has read-write access to this folder, and you just have to make sure that whichever account Business Objects is running under, that user, could be the system administrator, could be another user, has the ability to read and write into that folder. I'm going to close out of system settings now, and before I go in and start actually creating some objects here in InfoBurst, I just want to show you the report that we're going to use for the purposes of this demo. So if I go here into Web Intelligence Rich Client, you'll see that I have created a report. If you've watched any of my other Business Objects videos, you'll know that I use the AdventureWorks DW warehouse, sample data warehouse universe provided by Microsoft, and I've created a universe over that database. So in this report, I have one tab for country and category, so sales report by country and product category. So it lists the country and then the category, and then for each of the categories, the product line and total sales. The second page is product line by country and month. So bib shorts Canada, and then if we scroll down, we'll see France, United Kingdom. So for every category, it's going to show the sales by country and product name. And then sales territory group, which is grouped by region, so Europe, and then we have France, Germany, and then if we scroll down a bit further, and we go to the next page, we'll see we have North America, so Canada, and the United States. Just looking at this report, you can see there's a number of different possibilities for splitting this report. We can split it by, for example, this tab we're looking at now, we may just want to have it split by the region, so North America and Europe, and just send this part of the report to the North American and the European division manager, for example. So that's just one example. You can also have it, perhaps you maybe have managers of product categories. So maybe there's a manager of accessories, a manager of bikes, and you want to split this report and only send them the information that's pertinent to them. So if I'm the accessories manager, I'm going to want to see the accessories sales for all the countries. So just an example of what you can do. And the last tab here is just all data. So this is when I pulled in all the data from the data provider. It's showing me everything that's available. So I'm not going to be including this in the burst because the end users won't need it. So this is the report that we're going to be working with. Let's go back into InfoBurst now, and the first thing that I want to do is I want to bring in that report. So I'm going to go New Document, and from Platform, and we're going to say the Sunset Hill platform, and I want to select this report that we just looked at, AdventureWorks Sales Reports. I'm going to click OK. So now it's processing that file. It's reading all of the objects in the report, all the different filters and so forth. So now if I right click on this or double click on it to open it, it gives me all the details about the report. So the main screen, the platform, document ID, the path to the report, and then the parameters for the report, the prompts, and all of the report tabs that we just looked at. These are all the objects in the report that can be used as variables for splitting the report. And since we haven't burst this report before, there is no delivery log, but once we start bursting and using this report, we will see some records in here. And the action log. So I'm not going to spend much time on that. The main thing I want to show you is you have to create a new document and bring in your Web Intelligence report. And we're going to be focusing only on Web Intelligence, not Crystal reports in this video. I'm going to be demonstrating bursting reports to a network share and also via email. One of the great features of InfoBurst is how seamlessly it integrates with SharePoint. I'm not going to be showing that in this video because I don't have a SharePoint site that I can publish to. I just wanted to point that out before I get started. So because we're going to send reports via email, we have to have a source for the email address and somehow tie them into the countries and the product categories and so forth. So I want to use a database for this. You can create lists within this InfoBurst application if you want to, but we're going to use a database instead. So in our SQL Server instance here, the database that's used for the universe is this AdventureWorks DW 2008. I've created a separate little database here with contact information. So I have four. We have a country contact table. Let's just have a look and see what we have in there. So you can see we have 3 columns: country code, country name, and email address. And what I've done is I've created some test emails. So for example, for Australia, sunsethill.test.au@gmail. And I'm grouping Canada and the US into a sunsethill.test.na for North America. And I'm grouping the other countries in Europe to the sunsethill.test.eu. And then for the category contact, what we have is there's 4 main categories: bikes, components, clothing, and accessories. So these might be division managers of the company. So the person responsible for bike sales has this sunsethill.test.bikes account. And then we have components, and I grouped clothing and accessories together. There's one division manager that's responsible for both of those, and email address is sunsethill.test.clothing@gmail. And we'll be bursting the reports using these email addresses to distribute the information to the end users. So let's go ahead and create the DB connection, and this is what we're going to use to pull in the email addresses. So we've selected Microsoft SQL Server. You could use ODBC connection or Oracle if you want to. I've just named this email addresses, and I've put in the server information, the catalog, the user and password. I go ahead and click add. Now I can add the database queries. So I've named the first database query countries, and you'll see in the SQL I'm selecting the email from the country contact table where country code equals, and then we have to have this syntax right here in order for it to work. So this @ symbol surrounded by single quotes, and then the object name that we're comparing the country code field to in the report, and that object is called country code, and then 2 single quotes after that. So I click add now. You'll see that I have this. You must test this query before you can use it. So I'm going to go ahead into the parameters and put in the country code, Australia, and run this. So I'm getting the one email address that I've set up for Australia. So this is working. I'm going to go ahead and add another one now. The next one I'm calling product categories, and you'll see the syntax is the same as the previous query that we set up. I'm going to add this, and now I'm going to put in the parameter, product category name, and run, and I'm getting the one email address that I'm expecting to get. So now we set up a database connection with 2 queries to use for distributing the reports via email. So when you create a burst with InfoBurst, you always set up a destination, so a delivery. You can have more than one delivery in a burst. You can have it delivered to email, you can have it delivered to SharePoint and a network share simultaneously. And you may not want to set up those deliveries every time you do a burst. So one of the great features of InfoBurst is the ability to create a delivery template which you can reuse. So we'll set one up right now for the network share that we're going to dump our reports to. So delivery template. So we'll give this burst delivery template a name, and we'll just call it Business Objects Reports. And you see that in the destination drop down, network share is the default, And you can see there's a whole pile of options here. I'm not going to be going through all of these because I'd be making a 4-hour video if I was going through every single option available in InfoBurst. But for the purpose of this demo, one of the destinations is a network share, so I'm going to create that right now. You'll see this icon right here, this M, field is macro enabled. I'm going to be explaining that and the power of this, these macros that InfoBurst has when I create the burst. For now, I'm just going to create this icon here, and this is the destination that we had previously set up. And I'm not going to talk about the zip options or authentication at this point because we're going to do that when we create the burst. The format of this delivery template will be PDF file. We're not going to password protect it, but you can see there's a number of options here. Delimited text, Excel, HTML, plain text, and image. But we're going to do PDF. Delivery conditions I'm not going to cover in this video because I could spend 3 or 4 hours talking about those, and I may cover it in another video. An email notification. So once the burst is complete, do we want to notify users? We're not going to set that up at this point. So I'm going to add this delivery template. So there we go. There it is in the interface. Before we proceed, let's revisit what we've done. So we've created a new document, and that is this Web Intelligence report, and we can see the details of the report, the parameters, the tabs, the variables, which we've gone through before. So that is now in InfoBurst. We've created a database connection for sending emails with queries that we're going to use to send to countries and product category division managers. And we've created a delivery template for sending reports to a network share. And we specified PDF, and we did not specify anything else at this point. So now that we're 17 minutes into this video, we're finally going to create a burst. So we're going to set new and burst, and we're going to call this AdWorks, and you can put it with description if you want to. I'm not going to do it at this point. So now we're presented with the burst interface. At this point, we're going to add our document to this report, and we just have, for this demo, just have one report. You can have dozens and dozens of reports in an individual burst if you want to. In this case, we just want to have this one report. So let's go ahead now and get this burst ready to work. The first thing I'm going to do, you'll notice under parameter sources, there's a prompt in this report for the calendar year. So you can just go ahead and type it in if you want. But you can also use these macros, and these are very powerful. This is one of the best features of InfoBurst, in my opinion. So if I click on this, it brings me up a window where I can build the conditions or build the formula for the prompt. Let me show you a couple of examples of how powerful this is. I think the best way to show you how this works is to use some real examples. So let's say in your report you have a date dimension that has the first day to the last day of the previous month. So in this scenario, there's a report that's scheduled to run after month end is run, and it's going to be run in the first couple of days of May 2014. But we want the prompt to be the previous month, and in June we want it to be for May, and so on and so forth. And you don't want to have to enter those prompt values every month into InfoBurst. So with this macro expression here, just copy and paste it, and I'll show you how it works. Now I click on this resolve macros, and you'll see that the macro code here is resolving to this value, which is what we want. I'm not going to go into the syntax here. It's pretty powerful in terms of how flexible you can make these macros. In our case, though, we only need the year 2003, so I'm going to hard code that. Here's a couple more examples. Let's say you want to have it for the previous year month. Pretty common one for a lot of reports. Let's just try that one. And we see that's working the way we want it to. Here's one that's a bit more complicated. Let's say in a report you're starting with the month, day, year, and then 12 a.m. is for one of the prompt values, and we can also achieve that as well. And there we go. So very powerful feature. I'm just going to hard code in the year for this example though. Click apply. So if you hard code your parameters, you can just have to click apply here to apply this to the prompt. The next thing we want to do, we want to add a filter on this for country code, because we want to split this one up by country. And you can exclude certain values if you want, and again you can also use macros in this field. We're not going to do that right now. Then we have to specify delivery. So in this case, we had created that template earlier in the video, and that would be pushing the reports out to a network share, this Business Objects reports template, and we'll use that. We can go ahead and change some of the properties of this delivery. As you recall, we used a template, and so the path is grayed out because that's based on the template that we defined. So one of the great features, the second really good feature that I like in InfoBurst is the ability to have complete control over the file name. So when we burst a report into individual PDF files or Excel files, we have complete control over the name of each individual file, and that's because the field is macro enabled. So I'm going to go ahead and build this. I'm going to say I want the value for the calendar year. So this case it should be 2003. Then I'll put a space. I'll go sales report 4 dash, and then the country code. And we'll just resolve this. Okay. So 2003 sales report 4, and at runtime it's going to be replaced by the country code value. That's good. We'll click apply. And you can zip the output files if you want, and also password protect them. And again, you can use a macro on the password, so the passwords can be dynamic. So a lot of great security features here. Just click on format, and I want it to be PDF. That was specified in the delivery template. We can password protect each individual PDF file if we want. So we're going to perform the split, and in this case I just want this one tab to be split, the country and category tab. I'll click on save. A couple other things I'll point out before I burst this report. The delivery mode, by default it's at N, so that means if you're bursting a web intelligence report into 30 individual PDF files, it's going to push them out to the network drive at the end of the process as opposed to after each one is created, or you can have it do immediately. This abort options, if you don't want any files delivered, if the burst encounters an error, you can have stop and abort, which is the default, or you can continue with no delivery or deliver when possible. You can have it set up so there's an email sent if the burst aborts. If you check this simulate delivery, it's going to run through the whole process just to make sure that there's no errors with it. It's just not going to create any files or send any emails. And this group emails, what that's referring to, in the case of bursting a report that has sales for Canada and the United States, and we've set up one recipient for North America, they'll get an email with 2 PDF files, one for Canada and one for the US if we check this. If we uncheck it, they'd be getting 2 separate emails with a single PDF file attached to it. Alright, we've done everything we need to do. We're going to go ahead and burst this report. And you'll see an activity log that shows up here. If I click on this timeline, it's going to show me everything that happens in regards to this burst. So opening the reports, connecting, logging in, assigning the parameters, all that will show in this timeline, and it's kept as an audit trail for every burst that's done. I'm going to pause this while it finishes. So we can see it started at 7:33:09, and it took, this is a fairly small report, it only burst into 6 individual PDF files, so it only took less than a minute, so fairly quick. Let's have a look and make sure the files are actually in place. If I go to this Business Objects Report Output folder, now I see the PDF files, and it has the naming that we wanted, 2003 Sales Report 4, and then the 2-character country code. So I click on the one for Canada and have a look at it. We can see that there is only records for Canada in this report, which is what we wanted. If I have a look at the one for the United States, we're seeing sales report by product category just for the United States. So this burst did work the way we wanted it to. Before we move on to the next part of the video where I'm going to be emailing the reports, I just want to show this feature to this email to me, this timeline. I'm going to click on this, and I should be getting an email with all of the detail for this burst and the timeline. So let's just close out of here. Actually, we'll leave this burst open. Let's go check my email. So this is the email generated by InfoBurst, and you can see it shows every single step of the procedure involved in bursting the report. The start and end times, the elapsed times, every parameter that was used, every value that was used to burst the report, and a fair amount of detail. Actually, I don't think you could have more detail than what they offer you here. And in addition to the inline details, there's an Excel file with the same information that you can download and save, so it has all the same information. Really nice feature to have all that detail. Let's go back to InfoBurst. I want to add another delivery to this existing burst, so I don't have to create a new burst. I just can add a new delivery. So click on the plus sign here. Actually, I don't want it from a template. Cancel. From blank. Okay, now we have the destination. In this case, we want it to be email inbox, and we want to use, we don't want to use entered values, we want to use a data source. So we're going to select that data source that we created earlier in the video, this email addresses, and we want to use the countries query because we're sending it based on country. And in this case, I don't have to specify any parameters or columns to use. It knows by default what to use based on how we set up that query. You can have a message in the body of the email explaining to the end user what the email contains. And it's also macro enabled, so if you wanted to specify the name of the country that the report is for, you could use the macro functionality and do that as well. And we won't do that. If you want to zip the file, you can, and password protect it, you can as well. So format, now I want PDF, and in this case I want it to include the country and category tab and the product line and country by month. Okay, click add. So now we have this delivery here. I should rename it because this is an email delivery, so let's go ahead and just quickly do that. Just give it a more descriptive name. So let's run this burst again. In this case, I'm going to disable that first delivery that we had because we already tested that. So we're only going to be testing the email delivery now. I could run them both at the same time, and that's just fine, but we don't need to right now. So I'm going to go ahead and burst this. And I'll pause it while it finishes. Okay, we can see that this process finished successfully. It took about a minute to run through the reports and send the emails. You just close that and just have a look at some of these emails. So I'm signed in here with my test, sunsетhill.test.na for North America, and you see I have an email. And it says, hello, please find the sales report for your country, attach this email. And we're getting 4 reports here. So we're getting the 2 tabs we specified, which are split into individual reports, one for Canada and one for the US. Just have a very quick look at the email that was sent to the sunsетhill.test.eu account, and because we had specified 3 countries belonging to Europe, France, Germany, and Great Britain in this example, we would expect that InfoBurst would have created 6 PDF files. The 2 reports times 3 countries, and indeed it did. So everything looks like it worked just the way we intended. So before I close out this video, I just want to show a few more features of the product. If you click on the activity logs on the left hand side, you can specify all of the bursts that have happened for today, yesterday, last 3 days, or a custom date range, and you can see the detail of the burst. So if I click on this, I can see the start and the elapsed time. I can have a look at the timeline at any time again if I want to, and email it to myself or email it to the administrator. So very detailed amount of audit tracking that's done by InfoBurst, which is a nice feature to have in case there's ever any issues with the burst. You know exactly where it may have failed. One thing I haven't touched on in this video because it would take a fair amount of time, in addition to the 30 minutes I've already spent on it, is scheduling. So just like with Business Objects, you can schedule reports to run based on events, and the events you can create in InfoBurst are macro enabled, which gives them a lot more power than the standard events you can create using Business Objects for scheduling reports. Just wanted to mention that. So at this point I'm gonna close off this video. I hope that you found it informative, and if you ever have a need to do report bursting and distribution above and beyond what you can achieve with Business Objects, I'd suggest perhaps you try out InfoBurst. I really like this product. I've been using it for a couple of months now, and it's become an invaluable resource for me. So this was Al Williams from Sunset Hill Solutions. I want to thank you for watching this video. All of the videos that I've produced for YouTube, all the video tutorials for various software technologies are available directly on my website if you want to go that route, and they're just links to the YouTube videos, or you can go right to my YouTube channel and have a look at all the videos I've previously produced for Business Objects and for other technologies as well. And one last thing, if after watching this video you feel that InfoBurst may be beneficial for your organization, I suggest going to the Infosol.com website and going to the contact page. You'll have all the information you need to get a hold of Infosol if you have any questions about the product. Thank you for watching.